Oh, we about to do a little baseball talk. Welcome to the Breakaway podcast. Little pop-up episode we got here talking about the MLB Hall of Fame voting from yesterday. I am Jon Root, your host, sitting next to the Robin to my Batman, the Clay to my Steph. Bryan Farnsworth, how are you?
You might as well call me Brian Pro Steroids Farnsworth.
Oh, baby. This is going to get spicy. I'll tell you what. I am going to offend a lot of people. Heck, I've been offending a lot of people since I joined Turning Point USA. Might as well keep it going. But it's been such an interesting conversation about the the Hall of Fame voting here. It was the last season that Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, and Curt Schilling were on the ballot. Mm-hmm. And we'll break down a little bit of how the voting went. There was one inductee, David Ortiz. He received 307 votes, just about 78% of the vote. So he got in.
The only person.
Barely squeaked in.
You have to get at least 75% of the vote to make it in.
Yeah. Big Papi. Oh, there he is, entering Cooperstown. What an absolute legend. But there was a lot of people that were very upset about Barry Bonds.
Including me.
Barry Bonds.
I think this is an absolute affront to the sport of baseball. But go on.
He got 66% of the vote. Final year on the ballot, 260 votes total. Roger Clemens, 257 votes total. He got 65.2%. And then Curt Schilling didn't make it. That wasn't much of a shocker to me. 231 votes for about 58.6%. Let's start with Barry Bonds. I will stand by my take that I don't think Barry Bonds deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But get this, Barry Bonds is the greatest baseball player that we may ever see. 100% the most exciting baseball player we will ever see. But what I posted on Breakaway's Instagram, why my reasoning was I feel like integrity, sportsmanship, and character, that aspect of Rule 5, he did not live up to. He lied. He purged himself and tried to say, I didn't know about this cream. I didn't know about this, that, and the other thing.
The cream and the clear.
Yep. That's why here I feel like this is a slippery slope. If we allow someone like him, you got to allow everybody that cheated. He went against the rule. Does that help him hit a baseball? No. I know there's a lot of people out there that say that.
Yeah.
A lot of people
talk about hand-eye coordination. He's brought that up.
Absolutely incredible. Yeah. The guy got intentionally walked with the bases loaded. Everyone's seen that video. Mm-hmm. And his numbers speak for themselves, but his character and sportsmanship, and I know the producers back there say that his arms speak for themselves. Looked a little bit bigger than he didn't, and in his Pirates days. And a lot of people trying to say, before he used performance-enhancing drugs, he already had a Hall of Fame career. Then why did he take steroids? And why did he lie about it?
Chasing greatness. Because, look, it's not about Barry Bonds taking steroids, in my humble opinion, because the truth is everyone was taking steroids. It's why they call it the steroids era. When what was it, 7%, when they finally decided to crack down on it, because also, forgive me for not being empathetic to, people saying, hey, the baseball just didn't know. Because no, I guarantee the higher-ups knew the roiding was going on, and they were fine and happy to see it because ratings, started to climb a little bit, not much. I mean, baseball still dropped. But, when they first discovered and finally started to crack down on it in their first round of testing, 7% of the league tested positive for steroids. And you know who wasn't one of them? Barry Bonds. Not saying that he was clean, but I'm saying all these dudes were getting caught. So I guarantee there are plenty of people in the Hall of Fame right now who were juicing, and we just didn't know.
But that doesn't make it okay. That's the whole thing here. It's like I think we're ruining the. Everybody is constantly talking about how do we make baseball better? It's a national pastime. It's getting boring. We don't like it. Everyone's like, just let everybody juice. Like, if we want to start doing that now, I'm not into it. No chance. There's a lot of different ways that we can, change up the baseball, maybe the bats or something like that. There's nothing more difficult than hitting a baseball. Trying to decipher what's coming at you in a split second is very difficult, unless you're the Houston Astros and you got a little help from a trash can. That's
an interesting point, though.
That point, though.
Yeah.
Is the integrity of the game was ruined there when they allowed the Houston Astros to hold on to that World Series trophy. There should have been a vacancy for that World Series title. Don't give it to the Dodgers. But we're always talking about, like, how can we get the integrity of the game to get to the standard that it should live by? I think this is a slippery slope. You allow someone like Barry Bonds in, allow the rest of the people in, it makes cheating okay. And then you have this whole hierarchy of sin where it's like, this is still against the rules and was wrong, but it's not as bad as this. And then who becomes the arbiters of what's more of a baseball sin than others? Plain and simple, he went against the rules.
Okay, not baseball, but Tom Brady, does he get to go into the Hall of Fame? Deflategate happened. He was suspended 4 games. Is he a Hall of Famer?
Absolutely.
So what exactly is that? Because in both of these cases, the league decides they broke the rules. So what's the difference there?
When did Barry Bonds ever get suspended for PED use?
Wait, I don't follow your logic there. Sure, he didn't get suspended, but both of them, they're in both cases, they broke the rules. Tom Brady wasn't technically allowed to deflate those balls. They decided he did. But you're saying he's a Hall of Famer, but Barry Bonds is not.
Because he blatantly lied about it. He literally was on this whole tour of lying to us about that he has this character integrity for the game and that, like, and that's why I constantly hate the argument.
Also, it's never been proven. I mean, look, it's the
it was
OJ
in the
thing.
it was in the Mitchell it was in the Mitchell
OJ.
report.
No, but that's a report. That's one person saying something. That is them saying these are the people who we have decided were juicing. But there's a reason why, because if he was juicing, correct me if I'm wrong, but legally there would have been actions taken against it. All these guys came out and they admitted it, and that's how they.
Yeah, that's where you saw the Rafael Palmeiros and everybody else talk about it.
But Barry Bonds went in front of Congress and he spoke about it. If he was lying, that's perjury.
He perjured himself. He did.
In front of Congress, that's a crime.
He did.
And so it's just like, is it because it's just a cultural thing that everyone's like, we're not going to actually put you in jail over that?
Yeah, I think there's obviously like just bigger crimes out there, but he lied.
Yeah.
He did, and that's proven. But I just don't understand, because it goes to this other side of the argument, too, that we think, like, these are some old, just baseball writers that just hated Barry Bonds and he didn't treat us right. And, like, I think, they are right to think so, because he was never a friend to the media, but that's not really what's going to get you in. And I think to dumb it down to that is wrong. And I think Curt Schilling had a great take on that, because I think David
What'd Curt say?
David Lombardi said this: David Ortiz tested positive for PEDs and Barry Bonds didn't. I guess which one made the Hall of Fame? He brought that up, and then Curt Schilling had a good take about the media. He said, that's a lie. You must work in media. David Ortiz never tested positive for any illegal substance ever. He was not in the Mitchell report, and the New York Times didn't reveal anything. 23 players were false positives, and multiple players tested positive more than once on that test.
Yeah. So the whole thing Curt is going, because the one time that Poppy tested positive, it wasn't an official test. That's the argument behind the Big Poppy one.
Yeah. And then I just don't like how people are just like, well, if Barry Bonds smiled more and he had a good relationship with the media, he'd be in. You can't dumb it down to that.
Yeah, the tough thing about that, though, is because last year he only missed it by 4%. Like we said earlier, you need 75% of the vote, and he got to 71 last year. You do kind of have to, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, I'm just saying you do kind of have to wonder, though, with that, it was such a small margin of a loss that I do kind of wonder if more people did like him. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who are out there saying, hey, look, a lot of the writers said, hey, all 10 years I voted no because I was always going to vote no on Barry Bonds. They have a very similar take to what you say of probably the greatest player I've seen in my lifetime, most exciting player, not a Hall of Fame member.
Yeah, and that's why I think we can still tell the story of baseball and the history of baseball without Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame. Just like we can tell the story of baseball without Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. Because
I also think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame.
Because I think this is where it's just like you open up the floodgates. That's why I think this is such a difficult conversation, because I think Pete Rose, there is an aspect. I know I've been kind of the high ground. There is, yes, this is me. I feel like I have the high ground. I feel good. Anakin is about to be taken out. But the integrity of the game, I felt like was damaged by Pete Rose. Pete Rose, obviously.
Hey, for all we know, he never bet against his team. He was never. It wasn't like the longest yard
he did.
No. We don't know that though.
He ended up admitting later that he.
No. He admitted he bet on Reds games. He didn't say that he bet against the Reds.
Yeah,
there's a very crucial difference.
So
I think it's the most baller move in the world if you bet on your own team to win. You're putting your money where your mouth is.
There's it's still an aspect. I know a lot of the producers are like, this is fun for everybody. This is fun for me. The producers are going off. Everybody's been going off. That it's still against the rules. It still, I think, ruins the integrity of the game. And there is that aspect. I just don't think you can allow that stuff. It's like Pete Rose, once again, too, you can tell the history of baseball without them being in the Hall of Fame. Pete Rose, all-time hits leader, all-time home runs leader is Barry Bonds, and the all-time Cy Young leader, Roger Clemens, isn't in there. You can still tell the story of baseball without them.
And you want to know what the story of baseball is telling us? It's going into the absolute crapper. Let me give you this one. Okay.
So we should just allow people. Allow people to cheat.
Hold up.
It's okay.
Last year, 2021, the top 50 sporting events of last year, ratings-wise. Baseball had 2 of them, number 36 and number 42. Want to know what they were? The MLB All-Star Game and the MLB Home Run Derby. Not one single game, even of the World Series, was a top 50 sporting event. You want to know things that beat it? All 6 NBA Finals games, the Kentucky Derby, the Masters, the NFL Draft, and the Euro Cup soccer final. Those are all higher rated in the United States than baseball. Baseball sucks, and you want to know why?
I definitely agree, but it's like because baseball doesn't suck because we're not allowing guys in that clearly cheated.
Well, baseball sucks because we're playing this game where we think things because legal and fair are the same things. Because this is honestly, I have come around to the Bill Burr way of thinking. I don't care that the Houston Astros cheated anymore.
Oh my!
You want to know why? Because they brought as Bill Burr says, they brought a gun to a gunfight. The Los Angeles Dodgers spent $235 million on their team. My Diamondbacks spent $66 million on their team. It's not a fair sport. It isn't. So if we want to talk about integrity, these teams, these big markets are legally and fairly allowed to completely screw over all the other teams. That's why baseball sucks, because there's no integrity even from the league office. It's horrible.
The Houston Astros tarnish the integrity of baseball. If you want to hit a baseball,
they spent $100 million less on their team. $100 million because they don't have more money.
You know what's worth more than $100 million? Know what pitch is about to come next?
Yeah, I agree.
I guarantee you could have your Diamondbacks go in place, take on the Dodgers, and would still find unbelievable success because they knew what pitch was coming next.
The Red Sox were doing it too.
Yes, and obviously, but that's where there's so many people that are protected in baseball, and the integrity of baseball has been tarnished because we allow stuff like this. There's absolutely no way in hell that anybody should be supporting the Houston Astros. Also, no player really got punished for this. All it was Alex Cora, and then they got rid of their manager, and then there was a little bit of a fine. But it was a little slap on the wrist. No, but
should Jose Altuve go into the Hall of Fame when he's done with his career?
Nothing's come out about Jose Altuve. Like why
he's on the team?
Why are they being protected? That's my thing here. And then there's this other.
I think because baseball needs to protect itself because it's in the crapper already so much.
They need to protect themselves so much that they're not going to allow the truth to come out. I think that is pretty. That's why I think some people are so up in arms here about this.
Because they see the hypocrisy.
For me, yeah, it's a blatant hypocrisy. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't think that every single Houston Astro was on board with them cheating.
Well, you couldn't tell everybody. You trade guys, you cut them. The only people for sure who knew were the core members of the team. That's the only way it would have worked.
And that's why here it's just punish these guys. I think these guys are being rightfully punished in the MLB Hall of Fame for going against the rules. And I think it's the right thing to do. And I know there's people like, I respect Jeff Passan so much. He is an incredible baseball mind, incredible journalist. I know he was up in arms about this. I am the only one around here who respects the rules. This is if you're watching, obviously you see that. Everybody listening, the production team having a good time with this. This is the most heated discussion we have ever had on the Breakaway podcast.
I enjoy this.
But that's why there needs to... Baseball doesn't know how to market themselves. We talk about why their ratings are in the crapper. They're so worried about shaving 13 seconds off a baseball game that they think that's what's going to help people watch.
It's like the Biden administration saying we saved you 16 cents on
Thank you.
on the 4th of July cookout. It's literally the same thing.
When's the last time you went to a baseball game and you're like, man, I really hope this wraps up in about 2 hours and 45 minutes. You're at a baseball game. It takes a long time.
Eat some
it's
peanuts.
Slow. There's a beautiful part of baseball. I love watching baseball. I know a lot of people think I'm absolutely nuts, but you break it down pitch by pitch, everything is so different. The way they're going to shift the outfield, the infield's going to do something. You got a guy on base that totally changes the way you're going to go after this at bat, and everything, all the intricacies in stats and analytics that go into baseball. That's why I love Moneyball. That's why I love the Oakland A's. How can you not be
romantic about baseball?
I'm totally romantic about baseball. And I think there's an aspect of we can worry about how to market the product better. Nobody knows about Mike Trout. Nobody knows about these big names. Like, do enough people know about Shohei Ohtani? No. Do enough people know about Francisco Lindor?
It's tough.
Do enough people know about Fernando Tatis Jr.? These are supposed to be rock stars. We wonder why the NBA does such an incredible job. They allow
game. That's the problem.
They bring personality into the game.
Yeah.
And then obviously I think the NBA, there's this integrity aspect that I think they've been wishy-washy about. And they obviously are in bed with the CZP and blah, blah, blah. And there's so much social justice nonsense. But there is a marketability to the NBA. They made it a year-round thing. The Summer League became huge. The G League is becoming a little bit more of a thing. They got the G League Ignite. So you got some of the best high school players that are like, I'm going to go to the G League Ignite like Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga, and I'm going to be able to market myself, play with some NBA veterans. And
the Rising Stars competition, I know this is totally off topic, but the Rising Stars competition this year is going to bring in 4 players from the NBA G League. Yeah, exactly. They're like Adam Silver, genius. But the guy's doing stuff to make his. We all know Manfred's the worst commissioner in any sports league. I mean, the FIFA guy who's collecting $100 million in bribes is probably a better commissioner than Manfred is.
Yeah, that's why I think and if we talk about commissioners, Bud Selig should not be in the Hall of Fame. Like what he was able to get away with was ridiculous. So anytime someone brings up like, you say one thing about somebody, like just like when on TPUSA Live or on this show, we're going to say something derogatory about President Biden. It's just like, well, what do you think about Trump? It's just like, you can call 2 things out. And there's so many people that,
Thank you.
Rob, yes.
Clown.
Obviously, the way he's gone about stuff is absolutely ridiculous. But you can call out...
He's worse than Goodell.
You can call out 2 wrongs. Just because you make one statement about Barry Bonds doesn't mean that I think everything that happened with the Astros is okay, or Roger Clemens or anything like that. But one thing that I am even more up in arms about is Curt Schilling.
Oh, yeah.
Curt Schilling, obviously, before this final ballot, he said, I am absolutely done with this nonsense. Do not vote for me. I don't care anymore. He has one of the most storied histories in in baseball as a pitcher. He's the only pitcher to win a World Series game for 3 different teams. When he retired, he had the best postseason record out of any pitcher in Major League Baseball. And he is not getting voted in to the Hall of Fame because of his politics. And majority of those politics and controversies were post-career.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like this is absolute nonsense here. And I know this is something that we posted on Breakaway as well, that there's no reason that someone should be punished like Curt Schilling just because of who he votes for or what he thinks about social issues at all. Once again, so he won at least 20 games 3 times, had 3,000 plus strikeouts, and once again, greatest postseason record of all time when he retired. And no one is bringing up Curt Schilling. Remember, Curt Schilling's the guy that got let go by ESPN just because he posted some meme about a transgender bathroom law in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the MLB NBA All-Star game got moved, but Jamel Hill can basically call for violence against Donald Trump supporters. And like with Curt Schilling, he's totally getting screwed over here. And I don't.
Curt Schilling has talked about that the Red Sox tried to get him. He says that the Red Sox organization tried to get him to take PEDs. This is my problem with the steroid era and why I fall on the side of not punishing these guys. As my good friend Charlie Kirk says, you have to judge people against the times that they lived in. My issue is that I believe the entire league of baseball during those years was complicit in the steroid use. I think they looked the other way. I think they knew it was happening. And here's why. Because baseball used to reign supreme. It was America's pastime. It was king. The highest ever World Series viewership had like 55 million viewers watching. Crazy.
And no doubt, baseball was so exciting. I remember when I was a kid and you're watching basically a home run derby season after season where you got Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. You got
bombs.
It was unbelievable to watch that baseball. But once you find out years later that those guys, we had maybe an idea that they were cheating, but you know who was on the front lines of calling that stuff out? Like you said, Curt Schilling.
He says Barry Bonds should be in though.
But I think, and that's where it's like, that's what's fine with these discussions.
Yeah.
But he was calling that out quite a bit, and there was a lot of fans that had his back at that time too, and he was unafraid to call out PED use. There is a really good article from 2009, Bleacher Report, Thomas Cogliano. Really good article. It's called "The Case for Curt Schilling's Hall of Fame Induction," and it breaks some of that stuff down.
What year did you say that was from?
2009.
Jeez, I didn't even realize Bleacher Report was around back then.
Yeah, and
my goodness,
it is a great take because this is before all this "Make America Great" nonsense and this real
"Make America Great" nonsense. What are you talking about?
That people got
that's what you're saying, that they got hyped up.
That they got hyped up on.
Like
everybody just got crazy
about.
That's definitely not nonsense.
Here for a second, guys.
Sorry, just get so riled up that people just got so triggered by that.
Yeah.
That this was before everything, all the woke infusion into sports. That's why I feel like old articles like this, it takes politics out of a lot of it.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. So that's actually the article right there for everybody watching, everybody listening. That's from March of 2009, and it really does a good job. So even look at this right here. Traditionally, pitchers are not considered Hall of Fame worthy unless they crack the 300 win mark. But it was talking about how arbitrary and it's how many strikeouts should you have? And I think he's talking about how he's a 20-game winner.
Well, yeah, and
he was a
runner-up.
runner-up.
Cy Young when he was playing next to Randy Johnson.
Yeah,
it's impossible.
It's almost impossible to win a Cy Young when you have Randy Johnson and
when you're not even the best pitcher on your team.
But there was times where he maybe could have won it over Randy Johnson, but he was just that guy. So he had 216 wins, but it talks about his 11-2 record in the postseason, and more in the article too, it talks about the political aspect.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like a lot of this is just such nonsense that maybe people probably just aren't talking about it because he asked them not to, and he checked out himself. I know Roger Clemens kind of checked out too. He's like, I kind of gave this up a while ago. And I think people like Roger Clemens, we need to get his take more, because I think there is this aspect of him that knew I didn't do the right thing and I shouldn't get rewarded for it just because we feel like we're in this new era. And that's why I think there needs to be a total overhaul of baseball. Right now, it's like, where are we going here? How are you going to market your product better? How are you going to attract more audiences? And what does integrity mean to you? Mm-hmm. What do you want to do with the bats? What do you want to do with the balls? What do you want to do with your broadcasts? And what do you want to do with players, trying to take care of their bodies or try to get some sort of up in their game? And that's when we need leaders. That's when you have Rob Manfred that has not stepped up in a lot of ways, has been very wishy-washy about a lot of things. And I don't think the reason baseball is going downhill is just because we won't let PED users into the hall.
No, I mean, it's going downhill for a lot of reasons. But first and foremost of that, and look, when I say downhill, also, they still make a butt ton of money. Like, they make just buku bucks. They don't, obviously they're not making anything like what the NFL makes, but the reason why is because it just isn't that exciting of a sport. You want to know what would be hell, in my opinion? Going to a game and watching both pitchers pitch a no-hitter. That's four guys who essentially sat around playing catch for 4 hours. I don't need to see that. And yet, everyone's always like, oh, no hitters, because it's very impressive, don't get me wrong, but it's boring. It's so boring. That's
why it is a little bit more niche. Have you ever seen a no-hitter live?
Yeah, no, I've been to, I went to Diamondbacks, their rookie had one last year. I was at the game.
Yeah, I saw Sean Manaea's no-hitter. Or actually, Sean Manaea's
I think his name was.
perfect game. And that's why I think it is niche. There is this aspect of, for me, I was geeking out, obviously, because it was my team, and then your team does it, and you're excited about that. But does that get the masses? What's it like? What does get people? Oh my gosh, holy smokes! This is what happens when you talk a lot in one day. You're like, what are these words that are coming out of my mouth? I feel like you've seen Bruce
live already today. Done another Breakaway podcast, and now he's on this.
Have you seen Bruce Almighty? Pay. It's, oh man. But what's exciting about the NBA? Slam dunks. What's exciting about Major League Baseball? Home runs.
Yeah, look, there's nothing in baseball that compares to Jon Morant. I'm sorry, there's just and I like baseball, right? I mean, mostly I'm just a D-backs fan, then I follow the sport at a bird's eye view.
Tough time to be a D-backs fan.
Oh, dude, we're terrible.
Woof.
But but no, there's nothing like Tyreek Hill. There's nothing like I said, Jon Morant in the MLB right now. I mean, closest thing probably Shohei Ohtani, which it is cool. It's a player who can pitch and hit. But it's it's just so much more exciting to watch the other stuff. And then on top of that, let's go. What's another sport that is kind of considered boring but's on the rise? Golf. And maybe it is because of the storylines we're building, Brooksy and Koepka.
Exactly what I said. The marketability of those guys, those rivalries, those personalities. They're bringing those personalities to the forefront. I guarantee you, anybody watching right now or listening later, it's do you actually know who Fernando Tatis Jr. is? Do you know who Mike Trout is? Do you know who Shohei Ohtani is? And if you do, what team do they play for? Mm-hmm. What positions do they play? What have they done? People don't know. But when you hear about Brooksy and DeChambeau, that's why those things are exciting, because people get attached to players.
Oh, yeah.
Even right now, there's these big superstars in sports, and you're going to get attracted to those people. That is a Trout there. Everybody listening, the production team is having a blast with this. That is a Trout. That is not Mike Trout. They're telling us that Trout's name is Mike. That is not the Mike Trout from the Anaheim Angels of Anaheim of California, of Southern California.
A lot of baseball fans back there.
But
Which is also the dumbest name in the world.
Mike Trout?
No. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
It's horrible.
It's terrible.
But people are attracted to superstar players.
Yeah.
People want to buy the shoes of their favorite NBA player. They want to get attracted to their brand, and whose brand is massive in baseball?
Well, and that's why
I don't know.
I disagreed with Stephen A. Smith at the time. I thought it was a stupid thing for him to say, but there is a little bit of truth to when he was like, I don't know if it's good for the league for Shohei Ohtani to be the because he can't speak English. And well, look, you and I even talked about it back then. I disagreed with it because I was like, look, Shohei's awesome, but there's a little bit of truth. How much marketability is there on a guy that can't even speak English in America? Like there is, it hinders it. Yeah. It just does.
Yeah, and I think as we kind of wrap this thing up, is a lot of people want to know like what's next, because now you have 10 years on the Hall of Fame ballot. That's it. It used to be 15, and I know Jeff Passan tweeted out that this was the 10th and final year for Curt Schilling, Roger Clemens, and Barry Bonds once again, but they're expected to be on the Today's Game ballot in December. So that is another way for them to potentially get in, but I think the writing's on the wall, and it's absolutely done.
Well, if they didn't get in, A-Rod's never getting in.
Oh, no chance that A-Rod's getting in.
Oh yeah,
no. I think those people are so far down the rabbit hole that they're not going to go.
Ready for us to say A-Rod immediately.
Fun fact: I went to the A-Royd. That's a good one back there. Cheaties. He's on the box. Cheaties.
So okay, I saw you were saying what's next, and I'm really interested in what you have to say.
Fun fact before what's next. I saw A-Rod's 600th home run at New Yankee Stadium.
No way.
When I went out there in 2010.
That's awesome.
I remember being out there, and I was out there with my girlfriend at the time, and I'd seen Barry Bonds' record-breaking home run, and I saw what it was like it was called Pac Bell Park at that time. People were like mugging each other because that's basically millions of dollars that you got in your hand. So I told my girlfriend at the time, if this baseball comes anywhere near the left field bleachers, I am going to push you out into the aisle and you run away, and I will find you after. I might be bloodied, I might be scarred, I might have bruises.
John is ready to die for that ball.
But we will be making money on this vacation. But what's next? What's next is people like Shohei Ohtani. We have never seen anything like that guy in our life. Start marketing him better. Start figuring out a way. We have what we have. He can't speak English in full sentences. That's okay. Is he still a fun personality? Yes. We loved Ichiro.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he was another really fun personality. Look back at some of those Seattle Mariners commercials where they marketed him so well, and he was so fun. And knowing that you can branch off into other markets, like he was a superstar in Japan. And I know that's why I loved having Dennis Safarte on the show too.
We should have brought him on to get his take on this.
We got to do it. We'll get him. We'll get him back on. And then also like Vlad Guerrero Jr. That guy just hits absolute tanks, absolute
tree trunks,
dinger dongers. But the integrity of the game needs to be solidified. Stand true.
I feel like it is right now.
Stand true. I think there is a sense of the Astros situation. No. You didn't. The MLB All-Star Game, moving that out of Georgia, acting like you care about minority communities.
Mm-hmm.
You took hundreds of thousands of dollars, potentially millions of dollars away from small businesses that were in the vast majority, were black-owned.
Yeah, because it's Atlanta.
Exactly. And then you move it to Denver?
Which is white as frick, dude.
Yeah, white as hell. It's white as snow out there.
I did.
And then that's where MLB needs to figure it out. This whole integrity and then like social justice nonsense and everything. I think just my last final take about the Hall of Fame is I think they made the right decision. And I think this is good for baseball, good for the integrity of the game. And I will still always remember Roger Clemens, Curt Schilling, and especially Barry Bonds fondly as a young baseball fan. I'll never forget watching that record-breaking home run on TV. Never forget watching him get walked with the bases loaded. And I know there's even other like crazy stats that his all-time WAR, his wins above replacement, was 164.4, second best all-time, just behind Babe Ruth and right above Willie Mays. The guy was incredible, but I think the Baseball Writers Association of America made the right choice here.
Well, look, I think on what's next for the MLB and baseball, you cannot be a competitive league again until you fix the cap situation. Like I was saying, look, the Dodgers last year, their payroll was $271 million. They spent more money on their team than anybody else. The lowest one was the Baltimore Orioles, who spent $42 million on there. Like, look, dude,
well,
essentially,
maybe they should
half the league is a farm system for the bigger for 5-6 teams. The reason why the NFL is such a
they're
good
idiots
league,
with money, just like the government right now. You pay Chris Davis $12 billion. Yeah. All the guy can do is just hit bombs and strike out just 300 times a season.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like there's a lot of mistakes that are made, but the problem is the rich teams get to spend money, and the poor teams just don't have it. The NFL, look, their teams are in these same markets. Now, granted, they make more money as a league, so that does make a difference. But the NFL is so competitive because their cap situation, their financial situation, their rules to it are so lock solid that it doesn't matter if you have, Aaron Rodgers on your team. As we saw over the last decade, you aren't necessarily going to win championships. You can't just go buy a championship the way you can in baseball. They have to figure something else out to get their financials in order. It's literally step one, in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah, well, it's interesting to see where baseball is going to go here. I know I will always be a baseball fan. They got a ton to figure out, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens next with the Hall of Fame voting and the today's ballot. What's that? What's the name of that? I always forget the name of that. Yeah, today's game ballot in December. But
I mean, that's a consolation prize at best.
Yeah, exactly. But, man, this was a fun little heated debate.
I know, dude. I'm ready to bring heaters against you a lot more often.
Man, things get spicy. If you like this kind of content, too, you want this during the week, something that's a little bit more topical, go ahead and let us know. Also, don't forget to subscribe and review. That really helps us in the podcast. Don't forget to follow us at TPUSA Breakaway. We are going to the moon. I'm telling you, it's a big 2022. We want to keep having great conversations. And actually, coming up this Sunday, it's a fantastic conversation with a couple swimmers. We got Gabby DeLoof and Erica Brown. They are very vocal against what's going on with transgenders in women's sports. Mm-hmm. And they specifically had some things to say about Leah Thomas. It's an unbelievable conversation about what we can do to protect women's sports, how we can partner with Gabby and Erica to make sure we can, if we're talking about integrity, the integrity of women's sports is going downhill. And it's because of biological men ruining it. It's an awesome conversation. Thanks again for tuning in. Barry Bonds, I wouldn't say good luck next time, but thanks for all the dingers. Good luck with the rest of your life. Bye, people.